You are running with the Devils, and we are back after a bye week. We're back here talking Arizona State football with you. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me, as always, Big John
Yo, yo,
Caldwell.
yo,
Big
yo.
John,
Yo,
good to
yo.
see you, sir. After the week off, we got right after the bye. Hopefully, the team does too, as the ASU Sun Devils will take on the Washington Huskies up in Seattle, the fifth-ranked Washington Huskies. That they look like a tremendous team, Big John. But hey, they looked like a good team last year when they came down to Tempe and the Devils pulled off the upset. So, stranger things have happened, especially after last week. All the upsets in college football. No reason to think that ASU can't go up to Seattle and possibly pull off a big upset of the Dogs. They're 6-0, but hey, they're certainly they're not invincible by any stretch.
This is a classic trap game, I think. I can see it for these guys.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong especially when you look at Washington's schedule this year. I mean, they got kind of a lull here with ASU. Just coming off that big game against Oregon, probably the game of the year thus far in college football. They have ASU at home. They go to Stanford next week, so not exactly a trap game, but they do have a USC in 2 weeks at the Coliseum. So definitely some big games coming up for them. Hopefully ASU can go out and play a little competitively. We didn't get, obviously, because we were off last week, we didn't get a chance to talk about the Colorado game. We'll certainly get into that. ASU had tied the game with a minute to go. Looked like they were headed for overtime. They give up the big play. It leads to the game-winning field goal as they fall in another close one to the Buffaloes. ASU obviously gets the much-needed bye. Can they get healthy? Get right, work on some things. Hopefully that'll be the case as they go back on the road. And then, our open-ended question of the week, our discussion of the week, is Coach Kenny Dillingham going through some rookie coach growing pains? Is he getting out coached, or is halftime adjustments not necessarily holding up? That's something that we'll get into. And then, of course, we'll preview this week's big matchup with the Dogs up in Seattle. But we'll start with our recap of the game 2 weeks ago in Tempe. A big-time crowd turned out to watch the Devils and the Buffs play. Devils had the halftime lead, actually, and couldn't hold it in the second half. They struggled in the second half all season long. Big John, they lose their fifth straight to Colorado, 27-24. But Devils look good on the big stage. Sold-out stadium. It was a big-time matchup. A lot of celebrities there. I'm happy to say, walked right by me up the tunnel. Waka Flocka Flame. That was a big thrill for me. So definitely, ASU played well enough to win. Fortunately, they couldn't close there at the end. Your thoughts?
We've seen 3 games in a row where the improvement is palpable from week to week. We played well enough to win. You can say that we got out coached. The winning play really, or the winning drive, was caused by Jordan Clark having to go out. And good coaches see when a starter goes down and they immediately pick on the replacement, Rashada. And he was late coming across over the top to help row Torrance. And that was the ball game at that point. They were then in field goal position and in a position to win. So, I mean, hats off to Colorado for figuring it out. We did get a little out coached. That's a classic move when a starter goes down and you got to play a third stringer at that point. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you do. But we played well enough to win. There's lots of moral victories this year, I guess you could say. But it's the neat thing is, what has proven to me is the portal is a great thing, and for them, Colorado, they were able to bring some skill players in, but still, in the end, they're exactly who they thought they were on the line. You cannot build an O line or a D line through the portal, guys. That comes through developing players and playing together over a period of years. So, this is why it's impressive what Coach Dion has done in terms of turning that program around. But they're not going to a playoff. They're not going to a bowl. They can't play defense.
They might sneak into a bowl, but I honestly don't see them winning more than 7.
No,
at
no,
this
no.
point. I mean, I don't have their schedule in front of me,
Oh,
but
it's tough.
how they played of late. Teams have some film on them now.
The back
They're
half, their back
yeah.
half is very tough.
Oh, okay. And
Very, very
I
tough.
believe that. And it's just a matter of they're they're just not that good. I mean, they shocked everybody. They were they just had all that hype, all the clicks. But
TCU, yeah.
in the end, yeah, at the beginning of the year, yeah, big win over TCU. But they're fun to watch. They're an exciting team. But they have their deficiencies,
Well,
and
they've had to get.
they're starting to get exposed, especially by a 1-4 ASU team that really you take that game into overtime at home. I like
Yeah,
ASU's chances
I
in a
think we
game
would have.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just it's unfortunate it happened the way it did. Good teams make the big plays down the stretch. And unfortunately that was the case. Still, ASU having trouble closing games out in the second half. That's kind of been their Achilles heel so far this year. It's like they still have to learn how to win. I think a little bit, and that's
Yep.
That's why they're 1-5 right now. But
Yeah.
hopefully they'll continue to improve week to week, and the wins will come with the experience, because you lose games like this, it sticks in your mind. It's like we don't want to feel this way again. So let's go out there, work our tails off, and get it right, so we don't feel this way again.
Yeah, the team has not quit on
No,
coach. They're still buying in. That's the positive. We're still dinged up. We lost
they're
a couple.
certainly saying all the right things. Feels they don't feel like a 1-5 team.
No.
Nobody's hanging their head. Nobody's bad mouthing anybody. There's no infighting within the team. There's nothing like that. So I like where they're. Even despite the record, I still like where they're at. And a couple guys had some nice games here. I mean, especially look at Trenton Bourget. 335 yards through the air and a touchdown to go along with a rushing score. That was an interesting play design there from the 2-yard line, where they spread everybody out and had him just go under center and then basically reach the ball out from 2 yards away.
Yeah, that looked like
I hadn't really seen that. It's simplistic, but it
think
works.
That was a Cal Poly play, or an Eastern Washington play.
Maybe. And then Elijah Badger. I mean, we talk about him on this show every single week, how good he is, and he looked really, really good in this game. 12 catches, 134 yards. I would have liked to see him get in the end zone, but still a very, very good game for him. He's looking more and more like a pro wide receiver every single week. And then Prince Dorba with a nice game, 2.5 sacks. Clayton Smith's been banged up, and Dorba was supposed to be kind of the bookend for him. You're going to have the Oklahoma transfer on one side and the Texas transfer on the other. And Dorba, was kind of an afterthought. And he's come on, put together a nice year for him.
6 sacks for the year.
Yeah, especially the last couple weeks, he's really come on and established himself as a good pass rusher.
And some of those are coverage sacks, but we'll take them.
Oh yeah, totally. And yeah, anytime you can get a pass rush, that's big for your defense. The ASU got 6 sacks in this game. So
I talked to Prince last night at the radio show, and there's a real number one on all their list on that whole defense is start making turnovers. Start.
They only have one all year, and that was basically a gift against USC. So
it was a mishandled ball.
That's got to be a focus as we get into the second half of the season.
And we'll get into that in a minute on our
we'll certainly talk about that. We talk about it every week on this show. Certainly we're all keeping track. And then Shedeur Sanders, Colorado quarterback, nice game, decent game, 26 of 42, 239 yards and a touchdown to go along with that rushing score. But then that little flex there at the end, flashing the platinum watch to the student section after the game. You just beat a 1-4 team by 3 points off a blown assignment. I mean, I would not be showing your to anybody at that point. I'd just be going across the field saying good game and heading to the locker room. You don't need to be showing out after a game like that, where you were frankly lucky to win and not go to overtime and put the game's fate in your defense's hands at that point. And then, go ahead.
I just wish that Coach Dion was more consistent about he talks a good game when it comes to the discipline and playing the game right, and he let stuff like that happen. To me, it's like there's a double standard. His own kid gets to get away with it, and coach's comments were, well, he needs a watch deal. Come on. But
After a
60.
3-point win against a 1-4 team, come on, man.
That's right. That's right.
Look around. Read the room, read the situation. Jesus.
Yeah.
And this is why I haven't been rooting for Colorado all year. I was jumping for joy when they lost to Stanford last Friday, because it's stuff like that just make me go, what are you doing? I mean, you played a decent game, but frankly, you were lucky to win. You were very lucky to win, and you're showing out to the opposing team student section. I mean,
right.
Really? I don't get it. And I get that teams like the swagger, they like the flash, it's for the all those millennials and whatnot. But at the same time, dude, you're a football player, and you show a little class. And that's something that this team, that Colorado team's a little short on, and starting to show in their play. So we'll see how the Buffs play the rest of the year, but don't expect much from them, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Well,
and then another player that we didn't even talk about on this show, who had a really good game, wide receiver John and RyKno, with no Travis Hunter in this game. We said he probably wouldn't play with that lacerated liver injury. I mean, they were looking for guys to go out and make plays, and running game really wasn't that good. I mean, they totaled 56 yards rushing as a team. Jimmy Horn is another guy who had a nice game, but I mean, two guys that we talked about on this show who were their big play targets. Xavier Weaver, he only had 2 catches. Omarion Miller, the freshman phenom, he only had 1 catch. So they were looking for other guys. ASU was keying in on the guys that had burn teams all year, and to their credit, Colorado was spreading the wealth a little bit, and because Jimmy Horn had a nice game, Javon Antonio had that big catch at the end there. So they were spreading it around. They were making it work.
We got a little lucky. They had some big drops and some missed opportunities, but for the most part, our DBs were getting hands-on balls, and no picks, but they're knocking balls down, or the deflecting balls, or changing trajectory.
Tate Romney, 2 pass deflections. Ro Torrance, pass deflections. Ed Woods, Jordan Clark, Shamari Simmons, they all had 1. So they were now it's not about just getting putting hands on the ball, but actually bringing it in.
That's right. Yeah.
So
I think that's the emphasis on turnover and creating a turnover too.
Yeah, and and we talked about it on the show before. That's what's going to help key your offense. And that 43-yard catch in the final minute that set up the game-winning field goal. We talked about Jordan Clark going out, and Colorado, to their credit, they did the smart thing. They went right after his replacement, and they missed the assignment, didn't make the play, and Colorado capitalizes at the right time. So
this is why
they made the play at the end. It is what it is. ASU's just got to be better about knowing their assignments and not giving up. Knowing the situation, not be giving up plays like that. So but
normally,
especially from a numbers standpoint, you look at this and it's like, how did they not win?
Right.
That's the game-winning field goal. But ASU outgained Colorado by almost 100 yards. Yeah, the penalties were an issue. They had 9 for 88, but I mean, Colorado wasn't. They had 8 for 65 themselves. So I mean, it was a bit of a sloppy game, which is why the score wasn't as high, I think, as some people thought it might be. But ASU still controlled time of possession. They had 9 more minutes of possession time, and they didn't even run the ball all that well. It was mostly passing game that was moving the chains down the field.
Right.
So ASU certainly, from a numbers standpoint, it looks like they had every opportunity to win. They just didn't execute when they needed to in the second half. I mean, they had the lead. I was saying that to anybody. I mean, it was great how full the stadium was. I can't remember the last time it was that full. I missed the USC game.
Yeah.
But 2 games in a row for a team that's only won 1 game all year, they got a full stadium. And the opponent plays into that. But at the same time, we've had good opponents come in here before, and the stadium's still only 3/4, 80% full.
Yeah.
And this was a true sellout. So
it was good for revenue,
especially when you're walking around, because I sit behind one of the end zones and it was crowded back there. And then you start walking around at halftime, and it's the walkways are packed. that's all you need to know as far as like how full it really was.
There was a
And
a lot of their fans there who were just, first time fans. They're just there
of
because,
course, yeah,
and you may have,
they're just jumping on the bandwagon, of
it
course.
was a lot of bandwagon. Yeah, I don't know if any of you people ever walk in with me, but I think you might have walked in with me. I always greet the other fans and say, "Welcome to Tempe," and they smile, they tip their hat, they say thank you.
Oh,
But
I live here, but thanks.
you get that a lot, and I say, well,
Yeah.
then you know better, right?
It's a transplant state, so of course you're going to get that. I
Well,
mean,
I had this,
it's crazy how many people you got walking around wearing Philly stuff right now.
yeah. I heard they took over they bought all the cheap seats up today. They have filled up all the cheap,
A lot of good that did.
all the last minute, yeah. But
Anywho, but it's kind of like that. I mean, they're just kind of feeding the hype train. Just jumping on the bandwagon because they're the hot story of the minute. It's supposed to
mhm,
prime, all this stuff. But
this,
how many of them? Two questions. First of all, how many of them have actually been to Boulder?
yeah.
First and foremost, and second, how many of them have actually been to an ASU game before?
Well,
Really?
this one cat, I said, "Welcome to Tempe," and he laughs at me. He just starts laughing. I said, "What's so funny?" He goes, and he cursed me. That never happens. And I said, "You're cursing me in our stadium, in our house?" I said, and he immediately started screaming for the police. Save space, save space. Okay. what, a, what a clown. What a circus. Anyway, enough of those people.
What is wrong with people?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's another time, another podcast, I guess. Jesus. But anyway, as we always do here after a defeat on Running with the Devils, what we learned, presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Uh, Check it to support local athletics. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, first of all, I like the fact that ASU did not have to run to win. We've always talked about an identity on this show. We felt like ASU was a running team. They were going to have to run the ball to have success. They only had 57 yards on the ground in this game, and they, still almost won. So,
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to get the passing game going, Trenton Bourget, we put up his numbers earlier. He had a tremendous game. He always seems to find a way to get it done. For a guy who's not going to blow you away with with a physical specimen that he is. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but just he's a great competitor, great head for the game. Just always finds a way to get it done, and I like that. Well, that's my favorite thing about him. He's a great competitor. Works hard. Has a coach's mind for the game, which I love. And so,
well, I like
the
the
ASU
fact that
game was definitely the highlight of this contest.
I love how he's so good at the reads. Now, when he notices
Mm-hmm.
those linebackers have cleared out, boy, he took off twice and ran nicely, and he gets down, nice and safe. They don't want to.
Yeah,
They want
that's
to
the
get
other
him
thing too. Yeah, not gonna not doesn't have blazing speed. Not the best athlete you'll ever see, but again, just plays well, plays the game right, plays well enough to win. Does things
he
well.
runs a
Takes
lot
what the
like
defense gives you. Doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Just all around. Solid quarterback, and that's a lot of times that'll win you a lot of games if you have the right players around you.
Yep.
So,
But
and then the defense, I mentioned it before, just giving up big plays at the wrong times, just need to be a little more consistent. They need to be a little more on point, late in games. I know you're tired. I know depth has been an issue on that side of the ball, but just, not giving up the big play. They've been so good this year at keeping things in front of them, making teams work for everything that they get. It just feels like they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit, and they're kind of afraid to make a mistake late in games, that they just try to sit back and just let things come to them, and that's not winning football, plain and simple, especially on the defensive side. And they've got to go up and get some balls, go up and be a little bit more aggressive when going after ball carriers, going after the quarterback. Just get after it a little bit more late in games, and good things will come. You might make a couple mistakes, but at the same time, I'm not gonna. If somebody's going all out and is giving 100% effort every time they step on the field, I'm not gonna eat their lunch for that. And it just needs to be, that aggression and that effort just needs to be a little more fine tuned, a little pointed in the right direction and unleashed at the right time, to where we're coming up with big plays when we need them late in close games.
In all aspects of the game, offense, defense, and
Yeah.
special teams. You can have explosive plays.
Yeah, they give it the big play leads the game-winning field goal. I kind of, it's just the defense. Just it's you think about how close this game was and what what ASU did just to tie the game late. And it really felt like it was headed for overtime. All the defense really has to do is not give up the big play. Don't let them get into field goal range.
Don't let them make a first down.
Exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to me. That's all.
Don't let them cross the 50. Right.
Yeah. So that's what we learned. Big John, what about you?
Well, so early on, some of you may have noticed that our punting game has not been really great this year. It got better. It's getting
Carlson's been a disappointment this year.
It's gotten better of late in this last game, but we've had to use Scattaboo to actually help us when we need it. But we kind of fell into this new trend in college football where teams are going for it on fourth down. Statistically, it's way up this year. It's teams just trying to, because everybody wants to score 40 or more to get into the playoffs, I believe. And so there's a lot more going, and we're going to do it too. We're going for it on fourth down.
Yeah. Well, they're playing the analytics, playing the odds, and I understand that. I just, there's a time and a place for it. To me, I think you're right about definitely right about the punting game improving. I mean, Ian Hershey had 6 punts in this game. 3 of them were inside the 20, and he had a long of 50 yards, which is significantly better than what Josh Carlson's had.
Yeah, against USC, we gave up close to, was it 80 or 90 yards probably in the poor punting in that game.
Sounds about right. Yeah, from what I remember, that was very well could be the case.
Yeah. But really,
that's great. I mean, even Scattaboo, the one punt that he had on the quick kick, it still went 53 yards.
Yeah.
So hey, if it's working, why not go for it? I mean, Todd Graham used to have Taylor Kelly do that, and it worked.
Oh yeah, he did out of the gun.
Just whatever. I mean, if something's working, especially on special teams, there's no reason why you can't keep doing it. It's just But it was good that they noticed that and were willing to pull the plug on Carlson and let somebody else, because they had that open competition in practice the week before.
Right.
So that's the field position is a big part of the game, and they absolutely needed to get more production out of their punting game. So it's good to see that's been the case. Hopefully they'll continue to have that going forward.
And for me, one of the things I've learned is that we really have, while we're moving the ball, Trenton's averaging 331 yards per game over his last 6 starts. We're not getting our big playmakers in space. It's always in traffic. It seems, screens or we're trying to run this tight pick game where we're trying to get people off on picks. We haven't seen a guy.
I did like that they, but they are trying to get their playmakers open. I'll tell you one thing I liked about the Colorado game. They ran a lot of crossing routes.
Yes.
Which is great for receivers to get open over the middle in space.
They saw that on film.
Let them make plays after the catch. So I like that they were running the crossing routes. I felt like that was creating a lot of opportunity downfield after the catch. So hopefully that's something that they saw on film and they utilized, and I'd like to see them continue to do that because that's one of the toughest routes in football to stop.
It is. Yeah, I think I'm just flashing back to last year's game against Washington and thinking about how Trenton found Badger, back shoulder fades
and
the
Trenton
corners.
Didn't even start that game. That was the game that Emory Jones had the concussion. Right. And Trenton came in and showed out, and that's when the controversy kind of started. And if we felt like Trenton should be starting the rest of the season
against Stanford.
If we had, we'd at least beat Stanford. I know that. But in any case, and I agree. That's definitely something that I'd like to see some more of. Hopefully they'll continue to use the tight end a little bit more. This would have been a game. Felt like they could have used Conyers wasn't out there a ton. I think he was hurt.
Yeah, he's still got something lingering. I think
still kind of banged up. Yeah, they could have used a little more production of the tight end position. I mean, Messiah had the one catch Pierre had one. That's something that this offense has been utilized the tight end. I think they tried to get Morgan free on a couple plays too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is something else that you could have really used Conyers on. But yeah, just going into kind of moving on into the next week's game. And this is kind of the growing pains that we talked about earlier in the year, as far as a rookie head coach, a young staff, trying to kind of find their way through, figure out what works with this group and what doesn't. And it seems like this team is kind of coming apart in the second, not completely collapsing by any stretch, just the level of play kind of falls off a little bit in the second half. And is that adjustments? Are they just not making enough of them? Are they not making the right ones? What do you think, Big John?
Well, I'm gonna just go back to the numbers. Do you know how many freshmen we have on this team right now? 41.
We're a very young team.
41 freshmen. The cupboard was really bare after Portal,
and a few of them are on the 2 deep too right now.
There you go.
Look at all the snaps Sean Naaz getting on the offensive line.
Yeah, and it's good for him. It's developmentally is phenomenal for him. He's going to be so much better next year as having done this. But to me it's a numbers game, quite frankly, in places. And we had to bring in a lot of bodies after but there are 41 redshirt freshmen or freshmen on this team right now. So to me, that's where a lot of this is coming from. And those kind of kids, when you're that young, you have to learn how to win. You have to learn what to do in certain situations. And to me, that's been kind of what I've been seeing all year. But halftime adjustments, yeah, I definitely think we are we can get better there. I just think the offensive brain trust, once Kenny took over play calling, has gotten better. We've been in more games. I just wonder if Coach Baldwin is what is he doing? It really is to contribute to this. Is it just personnel? Is he counting? Is he's monitoring the defensive personnel to make adjustments? What's going on? I know he can see the spacing a lot better from being up in the booth, and he's helping with figuring out where the isolations are going to occur. But I'm not done on Coach Baldwin yet, but I just think that with the talent we do have in the skill positions, we could be getting a lot more big plays. And the emphasis, I think, this week has been to create big gashing, more big game plays. We've got statistically, we just don't have a lot of those.
Yeah, that's true. We have kind of been more of a dink and dunks, move the chains,
right?
Steadily get the ball down the field type of offense. That part of that's you don't have a quarterback with a big arm. If you had Jaden Rashada, I think you take some more deep shots. They certainly were when he was in the game. But at the same time, they also haven't really hit a lot of big running plays. I think Scadaboo's longest on the year was 20-25 yards.
Yeah,
maybe?
That was the SC play where he dodged two guys on the side.
And he had a 15-yard touchdown run in that game. Yeah. But the big play up the field where he dodged those two tacklers, that was on a pass. That was a passing play.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
But I think they're definitely going to need to run the ball this week. I don't think 57 yards is going to get the job done against this team, especially if you expect to keep possession and keep the ball out of that offense's hands. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as far as strategy this week. But just hopefully we'll see some improvement. Certainly the players, but also the coaching staff as they continue to get more games under their belt. Or they'll learn from their mistakes just like the players are, and because they're learning on the job just like the players are. That's something that sometimes some of the fans will sometimes forget about, that the coaches are learning just as much as the players are sometimes, and especially when we got a young staff like this. Yeah, Bo Baldwin, Charlie Regal, guys like that, they've been around the block a few times, but a majority of the staff, they're still relatively young. They're still kind of learning their players a little bit, trying to kind of figuring out what works as far as coaching them up. and getting them to improve. So, then this was going to be, we all kind of figure, especially once the postseason ban kind of took effect, self-imposed ban took effect, kind of knew the season wasn't going to be anything special, but still at the same time, I wanted to see the team continue to improve. I wanted to see a couple of, at least one marquee win against a tough opponent, something that the team could build on going into next season. And, we still haven't seen that yet. And it's still, I think it's coming. I still believe that. Still feel like, this team has a big upset in it. And it very well could be this weekend. We don't know. So, that's why we'll certainly tune in and watch. And they're going to have their hands full because Washington is as good as advertised. Believe me, folks. I don't know if any of you watched that Oregon game last week.
Game of the year.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Game of the year.
Is an early candidate. Believe me. 36-33 over number 8 ranked Oregon. Game day was there for that game, but Washington stayed undefeated. And their head coach, Kalen DeBauer, in his second season since coming over from Fresno State, has turned this team into a same kind of powerhouse. I think we all kind of figured Chris Peterson had kind of started, and he took them to the playoff in 2016 with a good team. They kind of came back down to earth, and ever since Kalen DeBauer took over for Jimmy Lake, he has really turned this team around and turned it into one of the marquee programs in college football, and they've definitely played like it. But ASU's kind of had their number in recent years. If we go into the next slide here, look at the recent history. ASU had that big upset. That was kind of their game of the year last year against Washington.
Arguably took them out of the playoffs spot.
Well, they lost the week before to UCLA.
That's true.
And then lost to us, but they haven't lost a game since, which I think is very telling. And ASU, nobody really gave them much of a chance last year either, because Washington was ranked, I think, middle of the pack last year, and they come in. Emory Jones goes out early with a concussion. Trent Bourget comes in and just lights up the Dogs for 45 points, and that was such a crazy game. And ASU leads the all-time series 21-17. They've won 13 of the last 15 against Washington, and they haven't even lost in Seattle since that 2016 team with Jake Browning and Buda Baker and all those great players. Byron Murphy, I think, was on that team too.
Great receivers.
John Ross and Dante Pettis, were on that team too.
Yep.
So that was a great team that went to the playoff, lost to Alabama, and I mentioned, we talked about that upset last year. That was definitely, I think it was by far the win of the year as far as ASU goes. Sean Aguano as the interim head coach taking over, and ASU pulling out the win in Tempe in a very, very hotly contested game. And then we mentioned the series, because the Washington was so good in the early 90s that they really had ASU's number for a while, and then ASU kind of it seemed like they always play well up in Seattle. It seemed like they always played well against Washington. They had Washington's number there for a while, even when Washington had good teams. It felt like ASU was still finding ways to win against UW, and hopefully we'll see that trend continue this weekend, Big John. But again, Washington, believe the hype, because they are that good.
Well, I'm going to throw something out there. How good are they if Pennant goes down? Are they good enough to beat us? A team that's a big if, first and foremost. They do have we've seen their backup Dylan Morris before a couple of years ago when we went up to Seattle and got down to them and then came back late to win. But I don't even think that's. I don't want to think about that. Well, certainly, Michael Penix is the engine for sure. He is the one who makes that team go, that offense go. And I believe that psychologically, if he was to go down, I think that team would have a real difficult time mentally think that they're all that,
Yeah, but that's true for most teams. I mean, it's a quarterback sport.
right.
So if your quarterback goes down, most teams, you're going to have a hard time coming back and winning anything.
Well,
Frankly,
I mean,
for most teams.
look at ASU. Starting quarterback goes down. Emory Jones, backup comes in,
Yeah.
leads them to victory. And
Yeah, and
because
I still
they
think
believed.
Washington's got enough talent to where they could be competitive. They could give themselves a chance to win.
Mhm.
But as far as going to the playoff, we're talking about very hypothetical.
Well,
That's probably not going to happen.
they have half the season in front of them still.
Yes,
and I know what happens to they're not as senior as we think they are. We just looked at their O line today, very very good O line,
through that.
but they're not all seniors. There's a lot of underclassmen,
and they got a couple tough contests coming up. I mean,
Yep.
Obviously Stanford, at least on paper, is not going to be a very very difficult team. But then to finish out the year, they got to go to USC. They have Utah at home. Cameron Rising might be back by that point. They got to go to Oregon State before the Apple Cup, so certainly not any kind of any kind of cupcake schedule by any stretch. Mm-hmm. So just looking at Washington's offense, and it's been so potent this year. Just talking about sixth in the nation in total offense, 44 points per game, and it all starts with their quarterback Michael Penix Jr. He's a Heisman candidate. We saw him here last year. I mean, he definitely looks the part, and he's a lefty. Not going to wow you with his speed. He's not a dual threat. He's a guy who's going to stay in the pocket, but he's a very accurate passer. 72% completion, over 2,300 yards, 20 touchdowns against just 3 interceptions. He's a legit Heisman candidate right now, Big John.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. I mean, I've seen him make some plays running to his right and throwing with the left across field. That's the hardest throw there is, and he throws dimes.
And he has got an arm. Absolutely, mm-hmm. He has got a cannon.
We talked about in the pre-show. Would you take a Penix right now, today, what over Caleb Williams?
That is a good question, because you look at all the stuff coming out about Caleb Williams right now, that he only wants to play for a handful of teams. He's threatening to come back to USC, claiming that he's going to make more money coming back to the Trojans than he would in his first year in the NFL. He's talking about wanting a percentage of ownership of the team that drafts him. You look at all this. I mean, I don't know how much of this is actually true, again, but at the same time, all this stuff swirling around him. And yeah, Caleb Williams, he looks like the number 1 pick. We saw him here. He's a tremendous athlete, and certainly a guy that, you couldn't build a franchise around. He's that good as far as, the arm strength, the ability to run, all of this. He looks like a franchise quarterback. But then you talk about all this off the field stuff with his, just his attitude and the, people around him, whispering in his ear, getting in his head. Is he just thriving because of Lincoln Riley's system? I think is something else that, teams have to ask themselves. I would strongly consider Michael. If I'm a team that Caleb Williams did not have on his list, and I'm looking at Michael Penix and I'm saying, hey, that's a guy who's got his head on straight. He's all about football. He's a team guy. He's a guy who can, we can see as a leader of young men, all this stuff. He's going to be about the team first. He's not going to be about himself. That's the kind of guy that I want leading my franchise. Yeah. And he may not be the dual threat that Caleb Williams is. The arm strength the arm talent, I think, is about the same. If I'm being honest, especially from what I've seen, it's very similar. You might give a slight edge to Caleb Williams, but I think Michael Penix is just slightly more accurate. He may not be able to throw the deep ball kind of the way Caleb Williams is, but it's still pretty good. I think it's still pro worthy. Absolutely. So if I'm a guy, if I'm somebody looking at Michael Penix, I say, hey, that's, that completion percentage, the numbers that he's putting up, and the intangibles as far as his head for the game. And, he's the kind of player that we want to build our franchise around. Yeah, he's not flashy necessarily, but he's still a guy who's going to go out and win games. And that's what we're we should be focused on. And I strongly consider taking Michael Penix over Caleb Williams.
See, for me, I look at it. I agree with everything you said, but there's one more thing I put on top of it. The biggest games of Caleb Williams' career, losing to Utah last year and the way they got drubbed, quite frankly, and then get beat, and then the way they just lost to
Notre Dame. Yes.
When the lights were brightest, where was he? Now I'm going to give you this. I think USC's defense leaves a lot to be desired. In fact, we see that. We saw that on our own field,
yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. But still, when the lights were bright in the biggest games, he did not come through. And it is a quarterback-driven league still, and he didn't win the day. So I kind of have to handicap him a little bit just because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, there are other guys that you look at, especially Bo Nix, who's having a tremendous year for Oregon. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma is another guy. Yeah, not the biggest guy, but certainly somebody you could see leading an NFL offense.
I think the kid playing for Texas is who came from Ohio State.
Quinn Ewers.
Holy moly, he looks the part.
He's having a tremendous year in his own right. Absolutely.
I think he's made himself into a great quarterback. I mean, he had the talent, but he finally figured out that he needed to go get himself in shape and get in the weight room and become bigger, tougher, stronger, and add more to his game. So I love that kid too. So
yeah, and then JJ McCarthy in Michigan is another guy that I really like a lot. I love his game. He's dual threat. Certainly somebody I could see having success at the next level. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd take a first-round pick on him, and I don't know if he's going to be the first quarterback taken just because of how good the class is looking this year. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if I'm looking for a quarterback, I strongly consider J.J. McCarthy from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. Definitely looks like he could be successful at the next level. So getting back to UW, Dylan Johnson, the Mississippi State transfer, has filled in nicely after Cameron Davis, their starting running back, who was expected to be their starting running back at the beginning of the year. He went down for the season during training camp. 61 carries, 340 yards, 5 touchdowns. They kind of run more to keep teams honest or to kind of run out the clock.
Do you think
they're not a running team by any
so
stretch.
They pass to set up the
run with success, but it's definitely not their strength.
Pass to set up the run.
Yeah. That's kind of Washington's offense. That was Kalen DeBauer at Fresno State. That's kind of his philosophy. So.
That's by design. We wanted to be a run first team, and we become a pass first to run.
Hey, you got to take what the defense is giving you. We become a pass first team because the defense is selling out to stop the run, because they've seen what Scadaboo can do when he's given running lanes. So that naturally they're stacking the box, asking Trenton to beat everybody.
With his arm.
He's answered the call for the most part so far. And then moving on, and this is another strength of Washington's offense, their receiving core, especially Roman Odunze. He looks like a first-round pick too. 40 receptions, 736 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the season. And he's a tremendous kick and punt returner too. I think I have the numbers here. Just give me 1 second. Yes, punt returns so far this year. Actually, he's only returned 2, but he had a touchdown on 1 against Cal. I remember that. He hasn't been their primary punt returner, but when they put him back there, he's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. A tremendous player. Definitely got to know where he is and get shade coverage to his side, because he makes plays every time he touches the ball. And then Jalen Polk's been a nice number 2 receiver this year. 32 receptions, 586 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They also have the U of A transfer, Jalen McMillan.
Right.
He's been a good kind of number 3 player for them. Not big numbers, 20 catches, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season. But every single one of those guys I just mentioned, Odunze, Polk, McMillan, they also have a rushing touchdown on the year. So they'll find different ways to get their receivers the ball, and rightfully so, because this receiving core is about as good as you'll find in the nation. And then the tight end Jack Westover is another weapon for this team as well. 14 catches, 127 yards, 4 touchdowns. They'll use the tight end quite a bit in this offense. Josh Cuevas is another player. He's only got 3 catches on the year, But another guy that they'll use very well, Devin Culp, is another guy. They find ways. They'll find different guys. They find production in different ways from their different positions on offense. It's a very fun offense to play in, I think, especially with the numbers that they've been putting up. So I mean, and the numbers certainly speak to that. 44 points per game as one of the best in the nation, for right and rightfully so. Moving on to the defense now. Washington's defense, they given the numbers are a little misleading because teams have gotten down early, but as potent as the Huskies' offense has been, they've had to throw quite a bit against the Washington.
Right.
And they're only allowing 21 points per game on average. So it's not. There's certainly a defense that has played well so far this year. Dominique Hampton, their strong safety, 42 tackles and interception. I mean, when your strong safety is your leading tackler, that's a very telling thing with how involved the secondary has been in the defense this year.
But he's a hybrid guy. Comes up on the box.
Yeah, and they'll play kind of a modified 4-2-5 because they'll have two interior linemen, they'll have two edge guys, they'll have two middle linebackers, and then they'll have a safety linebacker hybrid position who's what they call the Husky. It's kind of like the Tillman linebacker position from a few years ago, something similar to that. And then, the four DBs, obviously, on the back end. But yeah, Dominique Hampton has kind of become the leader of this team, number 7. He's a redshirt senior. He's one of the few true seniors on this team. I mean, the defense is actually very senior laden. It's the offense that, with as good as they've been this year, I mean, they don't have a ton of seniors. I mean, you got Penix, you got Westover, but really that's about it as far as seniors on that offense. But the defense, especially up front, that defensive line, very senior laden. Their linebacker there, Adefuan Olofosio.
Very good, very good.
Thank you. You get a lot of Islander kids, so very a little kind of difficult to pronounce names if they don't roll off the tongue necessarily. 38 tackles, 2 sacks from the middle linebacker spot, and a pick 6 this year. So he's another playmaker out there for the Huskies defense. And then the other safety, Cameron Bikulanan. I might be butchering that one a little bit. It doesn't exactly.
That's the toughest this year.
Articulate. Yeah, but 17 tackles. He's been very good for them. It is like their center field safety with 2 interceptions, and then their best pass rusher, Zion Tupuola Fatui, with 10 tackles and 2 sacks on that edge spot. This defense, they're solid. I will say that. I mean, they forced some turnovers this year that have fed into the offense. They've done a lot of things very well, and it helps that the offense has been as good as it has, but the defense has also played very well. And at some point, this defense is going to have to carry this team, especially if and when they make it to the playoff, which it looks like they're certainly capable of. So hopefully, we'll see what this defense is capable. Defense has up its sleeve. Going up against an ASU offense that's been potent at times, that has shown its ability to put some points on the board, and they're certainly going to need to do that this week. So that leads us into our keys to the game, presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace, great nonprofit organization that builds beds for families in need. Check out and support Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And for me, I think this week, Big John.
I'm looking at stats here. I got lost in some stats, and the fact that
yes. But for me, the Penix pressure. This was a big key against Colorado. I feel like it's something else. Even though Washington's offensive line has been much better, I think it's much better than Colorado's. Still got to get Penix out of a rhythm, force him to make some mistakes. It's not really been his game. He's not really what he's known for necessarily. But it's still something I think that the defense needs to focus on. If you're going to win a game like this, it's going to very well could be a shootout. At some point, the defense is going to need to get some stops. And if they can get some turnovers, that's going to be even better. Set ASU's offense up with a short field. I would certainly take that, and hopefully ASU's defense. We keep hoping for it. We keep watching for it every single week. We think they're gonna, break out with a couple turnovers, and they haven't yet. But I feel like that game is coming at some point. Hopefully, it'll be this week against one of the best teams in the nation. And then top is top. That time of possession. I feel like that's a big key this week against, as always, against a team with a great offense. For ASU, you got to maintain possession and control the clock to keep Michael Penix and that Husky offense off the field, because they can put points up in a hurry. If you're going 3 and out and giving the ball right back to them, they can drive it right down the field and put points up in a hurry. So definitely want to try to avoid that. I'd like to see them continue to move the chains. We talked about them not really being a big play offense, so don't necessarily need them to be that in this game, but still like them to continue to move the chains, get into some manageable second and third down situations that they can easily pick up and keep drives going and hopefully put some points on the board. So those are my keys to the game. Big John, how about you?
Well, I agree with everything you said. But my big emphasis, and I think what they've been drilling on all week, is creating turnovers. We've got, if you're going to win this game, you've got to create some turnovers. Their offense is just too good to let them keep getting those possessions and that time of possession on the field. You've got to find a way to limit that. So you do that by creating turnovers, or you might stop them. If you stop them stop them on fourth down or third down, put them in long positions to get the ball back. Great, but the best way to ensure that is by creating turnovers, and then and as you were just saying, we've got to get in much more third and manageable situation. And now because we've shown the tendency to want to go for it on fourth down, it's going to be fourth and manageable are very important. So
on the right side of the field, absolutely. I mean, they were 3 for 3 against Colorado in that, so why not?
I'm just looking at our rush defense is number 40th in the country. Their offense is their versus their offense 109. Their overall,
like I said, they're not a running team. They run to keep teams honest. They'll run to kind of give defenses a different look. But it's about Penix and that passing game.
Mm-hmm. So, to me, we've got to create more big explosive plays to have a chance. All right, to be competitive. And what I mean by that is,
I'd take a big special teams play in this game. Absolutely. That would be huge.
Yep. And so there are ways to have explosive plays in all 3 aspects of this game. But yes, takeaways, run backs, pick six, big explosive plays that eat up lots of yards. It's going to be one of the big. To me, that's the way you're going to have to win this game. So we've got to come with our big boy pants on and really get after it this week, to have a chance. And again, I think this part of the game, the ability to manage the chain, where we are relative to the chains, is going to be very important. You don't want to see us get third and 15s, third and 10s.
Time of possession. That's keep those drives moving. Keep that offense off the field. That's going to be big. That was a big reason why they should have won against Colorado, because they only had 9 more minutes of possession time. You do that against Washington, I think you put yourself in a good position to make
in a good position. Yeah.
So
can you create turnovers? Like I say, from what it sounds like, I talked to Dorba last night. They were doing a lot of drills to try to knock balls out.
Well, yeah, and they got punch the ball a little bit, punch the ball on the ball carrier once in a while. That aggression. I haven't really seen a ton of it from this defense.
Well, I mean, by design, you may have the first guy wrap him up, and the second guy come in trying to knock the ball out.
I take that. Yeah,
that's a good way to manage to try to set yourself up. Is let first man make the hit, stop him, and the second man come in and tomahawk, punch the ball out. Yep. Or put the best way, and I hope the fans realize this: put your hat on the ball. Nothing illegal about that. You don't put your hat on his hat, but put your hat on the ball, and it's going to come out.
Watch the NFL every week. That's how they force fumbles. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how they're created.
All right, so those are our keys to the game presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace, and now our score prediction time. We both have UW winning this game, slightly different score. I have I think ASU will keep this a game in the first half, but I think Washington's just got too much firepower on offense. I think they'll pull away in the second half. ASU's second half woes will continue as UW doubles up the Devils 34-17.
I actually think we'll pull out some trickeration. We'll pull out some, we've seen a few innovative plays here and there. I think we'll.
I don't know, man. This ain't USC. This defense is a little more disciplined than that.
That's true. Yeah, guys, stay home.
I wouldn't mind seeing us try a couple things.
But I think what's interesting, I see it as a 7-point game. So do you. But
I know I see it as a 17-point game.
Pardon me. What am I saying? 17-point game. But not. But what's we share is that both teams are covering the spread.
UW is favored by 26.5 as of today, as of tonight, on Thursday, and that's a lot of points. I know I think teams are. I think the experts are getting a little thrown by ASU's record. Lost the word there.
I think but they're not giving a
record. But look at the scores. I mean, ASU has played every team close.
Yes.
So
nobody's run away
there's
with
no reason to think this game can't be close. Certainly, I think Fresno State was a bit of an outlier with all the turnovers. As long as ASU takes care of the ball and just even moves the ball, at least somewhat as well as they did against Colorado,
right.
They won't get shut out. They won't just get boat raced off the field, I don't think. And I think UW wins this game, but 26.5 points is a lot. If I'm a betting man, and I'm not, I don't gamble, but I would put my money on ASU to cover.
To cover. I think it's a good bet. And I'm telling you now, I don't think the wise guys are giving our defense nearly as much credit as they really deserve in this. We have been
and this is a defense, not explosive. They haven't put up a bunch of big plays, but they're built to keep games close. They're built. They're bend but don't break. They'll give up field goals. They'll give up the occasional touchdown, but they're certainly not giving up big plays every single time they step on every single drive. So it's not like this defense is completely inadequate by any stretch. I think they might have figured out a formula to getting after the quarterback a little bit. We'll see how they do against Washington, with a very, very good offensive line. But I think they have something in that the mixture that they've got with Deshaun Mallory, with Prince Dorba. We'll see if Clayton Smith's back healthy this week.
Green.
BJ Green, certainly he's always good to get after the pass rusher. I think CJ Fight has been a revelation as a true freshman. He's a big reason why we're ranked 40th in the nation in rush defense. He's made some nice plays.
He has.
So I like that mix that they have on that defensive line, and eventually those sacks are going to turn into mistakes at some point. Those sacks and that pass rush is going to turn into mistakes by opposing quarterbacks. Well, hopefully it'll happen sooner rather than later, but like I said, I don't think this turnover drought is going to carry on for the whole season. I think at some point, this team is going to come out with 2 or 3 turnovers. It's going to key the offense, and it's going to key a win. I truly believe that. I have faith in this defense. I think that we've seen flashes of it, how good it can be at times. So maybe it might be this game. I mean, they've had to prepare. They know what Washington's all about. They've had all this time to prepare. So
if we can get a defensive score in this game, look out!
It'd be amazing.
It could really be
that could turn the tide. Totally.
You know how many times a great defensive stop, or a great defensive turnover fires up the offense, man. So I think
they want to pick up that ball and run with it. They want to pick up their end of the slack.
Yep.
So totally. So hopefully we'll be talking about an ASU upset next week. Knock on wood. But we'll certainly be tuning in when ASU kicks off at 7:30 on Fox Sports 1. This should be a good game. I think a lot better than a lot of the experts are giving us credit for. But it should be fun to watch, if nothing else. I mean, that Washington team if you haven't watched them yet, definitely tune in because they know how to get after it. They're a fun team to watch. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to watching Michael Penix play on Sundays in the near future. So
26.5 points. You got to win by 4 touchdowns, folks.
yes,
I just have.
it's
We
a
haven't
lot.
seen-
It is.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So hopefully ASU will come out and at least make this a game. But we're hoping for an upset. But even I think we would all just take a competitive game against the number 5 team in the nation, quite frankly. So we'll be tuning in and we'll be back next week talking about it here on Running with the Devil. So we thank you for tuning in. Certainly give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment below. We always love to hear from you, our fans. And we say good night. Go Devils. Forks up. Down the Dogs.
Down the Dogs. Woof. Good night.